California is the most electrically dependent state on other states. Because of their environmental laws, they have outsourced the production of electricity to other states in the West and even to Canadian provinces because they don't want the dirty, quote-unquote dirty, power plants in California. So they pay more to Nevadans and Utahns and British Columbians to sell them power because they can outsource the electrical production to somewhere else and have the power brought in. So they have the greatest percentage of power imports of any state in the country. Now what's interesting about this is California politicians prize green electrons because they're all about global warming and let's reduce pollution. And so what they've done is because they place a higher premium on green electrons, other places know about this. And one of the places that has been taking advantage of this is British Columbia. And what British Columbia has been doing is embarking on a very ambitious hydroelectric building project so that they can sell the gullible Californians green electrons. Now I say gullible, let me explain. Back in 2001, when California's electrical market was being manipulated because they had a very poorly executed rate deregulation scheme, unlike the one in Texas that was better executed, BC Power, the provincially owned public utility in British Columbia, was actually found to be guilty of manipulating the energy market in California and had to pay a fine to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Well, fast forward to today. What BC Power has been doing is that they have been exporting all this green power to California. But, surprise, surprise, they have been in power deficit in 10 of the last 11 years. Because they're selling all this power to California, so they actually have a negative or a deficit of power themselves. Well, how have they made that up? Clearly the lights aren't going off in Vancouver. So what they do is they make up the power deficit by importing dirty coal power from Washington State and Alberta, which is cheap, right? And then they sell the green electrons to California. And if you know anything about electricity, just like dollars, electrons in a grid are fungible. They don't care how they're being produced, right? And so it's a scam. It's electron laundering. And as I look at it, the British Columbians have to have some way to pay for Canadian national health insurance, right? So why not make some profit off the stupid Californians? Make the Californians feel good. Californians care a lot about self-esteem, so they can get the nice green electrons from British Columbia, and the British Columbians, when the Californians aren't looking, just buy and backfill the power that they need with coal-fired power from Washington State or Alberta, which is ironic given that Washington State is in the same grid as California. So let's move on to oil. You hear Californians say, well, any success Texas has vis-a-vis California is all about the oil. You guys have oil and we don't. That's what you hear. You hear that from the left. Well, if you look at the Bureau of Economic Analysis, you think that maybe the Californians have a point. As a share of the economy in the most recent year for which data was available, California gets about 3% of its gross state product from oil and gas and refining. Texas about 9%. So, yeah, okay, 3 times as much. Maybe it is all about the oil. Well, let's look at it. Texas and California, as far as proven oil reserves, California is no slouch. I think the last I saw, Texas was #1 in proven oil reserves, but California was #3, now #4, behind, I think, North Dakota. About half the proven oil and gas reserves of Texas. Yet their production is only 1/10 of that of Texas's. Why do they have so much oil, and why is it still in the ground? Do you think that politics might have something to do with that? Perish the thought, politics! California has something called the Monterey Shale Formation, which goes from roughly San Francisco down to Los Angeles. Has something like 600 billion barrels of oil in it, that because it can only be extracted with evil fracking, the California politicians are wont to leave it in the ground unless they can tax it to death or regulate it to death. So they've got oil in California. They just don't want to pull it out of the ground. So don't feel sorry for them. They do have oil. But policies, right? Government keeps it in the ground.
Thank you.